Welcome to the third episode of our favorite show, uh, Around Town in Detroit. There'll be a graphic there eventually, obviously. So, the Redwings had a interesting draft. The first pick that they made at number 6 was Simon Edvinsson, a big defenseman out of Sweden. The name of the team he played for is the Frölunda HC hockey club out of the Swedish Elite League. Um, I think he's a great pick. I like what Yzerman's doing with continually bolstering the defense, getting big players, play a brand of hockey that's punishing and overall is going to help us. I mean, we need room on the back line anyways after losing Cholowski. And obviously Cholowski was a different kind of defenseman. I think he'll end up having an okay rest of his career playing with Seattle because everyone needs a second chance. Simon Edvinsson was ranked number 3 by TSN, so I do think that in certain worlds at 6, he's actually quite a steal. That being said, there was some offensive options on the board at 6, and whether or not we needed to take those as well can be seen. It depends on how you want to build a team. Yzerman seems to be wanting to build his team from the back to the front, where a lot of other teams will try to build from the front to the back. I think generally speaking, if you're going to build a team, you should build from back to front and down the center. So you should be building with a good goaltender, which we'll talk about in just a minute. A strong defense that you can play in front of at all times because playoff hockey is always going to be more defensive. And then your centers should be the prime cut of your offense. There's teams like the Golden Knights who focused a team on making it through the wings, and you can see that they struggle when it comes to playoffs because they just don't have strong enough centers. That being said, let's move on to the second pick that the Red Wings had in the first round, which was Sebastian Cossa, goaltender out of the WHL, Western Hockey League, playing for the Edmonton Oil Kings. And you can't see it, so I will tilt the camera just slightly so you can see he is a 6'6" monster of a man. And last season he played to the tune of 17-1-1 with a 1.57 goals against average. That is impressive. With that being said, there was a price to be paid for that pick, and it did cost us a little bit to move up in the draft. The biggest question there is, as you can see here, they had him ranked as the number 2 goalie. What does that mean when you go up and get a guy and he's not Jesper Wallstedt, the hands down number 1 goaltender out of Sweden, and you start to combine that with a lot of things that we see in the Detroit organization. We have a lot of Swedish players. You'd think that perhaps we're building a Swedish elite team, and Jesper would have been a great pick there. The other thing I see, though, the other side of the argument is Sebastian Cossa looks like Andrei Vasilevsky. He looks like Carey Price. He looks like a combination of every large goaltender you've ever seen. Ben Bishop in his heyday, Ottinger, who's playing for Dallas now. And Jesper Wallstedt has exactly the same comparables. He's being compared as Carey Price and Andrei Vasilevsky. And so is there a wrong pick? That becomes the question. Either one of them could end up being great goaltenders. You basically said that these two goalies look and feel like the 2 goaltenders that were in the finals this year. So who's to say that there's any wrong answer here? And if Yzerman thinks Sebastian Cossa has a better long-term goals, long-term future than Jesper Wallstedt, then this is the right choice. And if they both are successful, then there was still no wrong answer here. There's nobody who has to claim one has to be better than the other. They can both be successful goaltenders, and everyone can be happy. The Minnesota Wild will be happy with having Jesper Wallstedt, and the Red Wings could be happy having Sebastian Cossa. If you look at the track record for goaltenders that are going in the first round, they're all making their teams now. They're all starting, and generally they're all becoming relatively good players. If not just starters, they are becoming superstars. I think we'll have to wait and see on Ankarov, who went to Nashville, but we think that he's going to be amazing and just take over where Pecorini basically after his retirement gave up. We have Spencer Knight down in Florida, and he looks really good. It's a small sample size, but obviously it was enough for Florida to leave Chris Drager, open for the Seattle Kraken to take, and that's going to be their starting goalie. You just start looking around the league. The last first round pick goaltender who isn't a shutdown first, absolutely always everyday starter is Malcolm Subban. And he was selected by Boston, and he's bounced around. Saying that he's a bust would probably not be fair either. He's still good. He's just not Carey Price, Andre Vasilevsky, other guys who have been selected. So when I see the fight between should we have selected Jesper Wallstedt or is Sebastian Cossa going to be the better goaltender, I think the answer is we don't know, and you could be right either way. And it just becomes down to preference, especially in a COVID-shortened season for a lot of players. Saying that Jesper Wallstedt is hands down the greatest goaltender that's ever existed and everyone else is mediocre at best is disingenuous. Which brings me to my next point, and the other thing I'd like to talk about today. So the Detroit Free Press gave the Cossa move a C. You selected a guy for your team, and 2 days later, it had been deemed a C move. Now, if he becomes the starter for your team for 5 years, 10 years, who cares, even 2 years, that's not a C move. That's a fantastic move, no matter what it costs. Unless you're mortgaging the entire franchise in draft picks, which Steve Yzerman hasn't done. He's collected them and then traded them out in this draft. It's very well noted, and we'll talk about it in a different channel, in a different episode. We'll talk about how I think Yzerman was playing this draft. He had a lot more bullets in the chamber, and I think he was ready to start making a move. The team's not going to be bad anymore, and that's important. If the team's no longer going to be bad, it's time to move on. But how can you grade anything that's drafted until after you've had a few years to see how that person develops? I mean, the Free Press, I don't remember what they gave Maurice Heider, but I know that they made a meme about it, and then they had to eat those words less than a year later because the kid looks awesome and he's ready to come into the NHL. So how can you possibly know that that was a bad move or a good move? I mean, realistically, if Cossa becomes your starting goaltender at any point, this is better than a C. If he wins any playoff games, it's better than a C. And then on the Edvinsson decision, they decided to give that a B. Once again, how can you give it a B? You don't know. The idea saying that there were offensive weapons available and that passing up on them was wrong. And to that I say, once again, it depends on how you want to build your team. I think that's the most important is they don't know what Iserman wants to do, and Iserman does. And so far, they've been bad because they've had to be bad because they have to keep collecting and undoing what Ken Holland did in the last 3 or 4 years while he was here. Some of the just miserable moves he made that handcuffed us. Is Edvinson? It becomes a shutdown first line or first pair defense. That's an A play. I mean, if he becomes your top two, well, along with Maurice Sider, that's an A. I mean, sure, you can always use another winger. You can always get one of those centers. But we got guys who are coming through the pipeline too. Lucas Raymond will be here shortly, and we can re-sign Bertuzzi. And there's all kinds of things that need to be done on the offense. Now, maybe we don't score enough, but there's all these things that can come in due time. Fix the back end first. The back end has been deplorable, and with having the new goaltenders that are coming into the system now, and just a parade of defensemen that have been picked, I don't see any reason why fixing that is wrong, and so that's where we'll go from there. So first of all, I think Detroit Free Press putting a grade on anything, or anyone putting a grade on a draft this early, is stupid, and you're just gonna have to apologize for it later if you're wrong. And the only person who deserves to be told they had a bad draft was the Montreal Canadiens, and I think we all know why. So, with that, I will leave you, and we will talk about the 2nd through 7th round of the draft in our next installment. So, thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.